Okay, here we're going to go through the making a one-piece cell phone holder. So we're going to start with our normal Fusion 360 sketching. So we're first going to go create, and we're going to create a sketch, and we're going to pick a plane that we're going to want to sketch in. So this time I'm going to pick the XY plane. And what we need to do this time is I'm going to draw what I think I want it to look like. And then we're going to extrude that. And then we're going to cut holes in it so that we can actually send our USB cable that we're going to use as a charger for the holder. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to create a line. And I'm going to start it here on the origin. And I'm going to have my line go over, let's say, about 125. I'm going to click there to end it. And then I'm going to have another line, let's say, I'm going to have it go up about, let's say, 66 degrees or so. Let's tab over there, so 66, and I'm gonna make this one 80 millimeters. Alright, so I've got it 66 and 80. I'm gonna tap that, so that's gonna end that line, and then I'm gonna bring another line down here. And I'm going to make it a typical phone. I think is about 150 millimeters. I'm going to do a quick measurement of my phone here. My phone is, my phone's actually a little over 150. So it doesn't have to be that long to rest on it. So I'm going to make mine, let's say 120. Perfect. All right. I'm going to click in that. And then most phones are about 15 to 20 millimeters thick, probably depending on the thickness of the case that you have on it. My phone with its case and everything is actually about 13 millimeters. So I'm going to make mine here 14, and that's going to be where my phone's going to rest. Alright, so that's going to be kind of the basics outline of my case, and I'm going to hit escape, and that's going to end my basic outline. And now what I want to do is, this doesn't really give me a function for something to extrude, or a surface to extrude on, or a face. So I'm going to create an offset. So notice I haven't hit finish sketch yet. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click offset. And but now I've got to pick what I want to offset. So I'm going to offset the entire set of lines that I just drew. Alright, so I clicked on those, and notice I've got a little red line. That's my offset. I'm going to want this to have a little bit of thickness to it because I don't want it to break. So I'm going to make it 5 millimeters. Alright, so notice I've got a 5 millimeter offset. I'm actually going to make it inside because I don't want it to be that big, so I'm going to have the offset be internal, or on the inside. And I've got one more thing here I need to do. Notice here I've got these gaps. Okay, so I can't still extrude this because it's not a closed sketch. So I'm going to zoom in to this one right here, and I'm actually gonna make that curved here. So I'm gonna put a circle, and I'm gonna do a circle, and I'm gonna do a 2-point center circle. I'm gonna put one circle here and another circle in point right there. Perfect. And now I can go up to my trim tool, and I can just trim off that half circle, and look at there, I've got a little circle right there. Okay, so now I've got that. And now down here on the bottom, okay, I could either close it, or I could do the same thing with a little circle. And I think I'm going to do a circle down here as well. So I'm going to click here. Oops, I need it to do a 2-point circle. So let me do that. 2-point circle. So I'm going to click on that circle and that little circle there. Perfect. And now I can go to my little trim modify tool and I'm going to close it, and look at there. Alright, so now I have got a closed sketch. Let me zoom out. Perfect. Alright, so here I've got a nice closed sketch area of my potential cell phone case. So now I can finish my sketch. Alright, so there I am. Alright, so now what I want to do is extrude this. So I'm going to hit my E button on my keyboard, or you can go up here and click the little extrude button. And my cell phone is a width of approximately 76. So I'm going to make mine 85. Look at that. Okay, so now I've got a case that's going to hold my cell phone. Look at that. All right, so it's new body, 85 millimeters. I'm going to click OK. All right, so now let's put in some places for my chargers. Okay, so I'm going to want something down here so I can have my charging station come up. So I'm going to go down here and I am going to create a new sketch in my sketch menu, and I'm going to use this base here as my plane. I'm going to click there, and I'm going to rotate it here just a little bit so I can see it a little better. Okay, and I'm going to want my charging station to be someplace right in the middle. And if you're not quite sure of where the middle is, we can go through how to do that later, but I'm going to do a little guess here. So I'm going to do a rectangle. I'm going to do a 2-point rectangle, and I'm actually going to cut out a pretty good size hole to make sure that I can always make sure if I put my cell phone charger on it on wherever I want, I'm going to make sure that I can guarantee that I have it where it's going to charge. So I'm going to start right here, and then I'm going to make it to go all the way over to here. Alright, boom. Okay, so now I'm going to finish my sketch. Okay, this looks pretty good. Alright, so now I can extrude this, and I'm going to extrude it in the opposite direction, so it's going to be a cutout. Okay. I think everything is looking good, and now I am going to cut it. Boom, I've got a cut. Awesome. Alright, just to make sure that I'm going to round things out here, I'm going to put some round fillets on this just because I don't like these sharp corners. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight all of these guys. Primarily because I know that I am a little clumsy, and when I 3D print things, I often don't like sharp edges, and so I'm just coming around here and highlighting all these faces, and I am going to add a fillet to these guys, and I'm just going to kind of soften those corners a little bit, and I'm just going to round them just a smidgen there. Just so that they're not that nice sharp thing, so that when I charge my phone, I don't dink my fingers against the charger. So now I've got a pretty good, nice little charging station there. Alright. Okay. So now there's that. Now let's say on the other side over here that I want to have a charging port to feed through in the back. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do a create sketch. I'm going to use this big backside as my plane I'm going to sketch on. I'm going to create another 2-point rectangle here, and this time I'm going to go about here to here. Okay, again, I doesn't really matter here on the size, and it'll just be less filament that I'm going to need to print. And I want plenty of room to feed a charger through them, just make it easy for me. I don't want a little tiny hole. So I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to click on that, new sketch, and I'm going to extrude it. I'm going to extrude it inward. Okay. And I'm just going to make sure that it isn't going to go down and hit the base of my pillar there. All right, the base, so I don't want it to hit this bottom. So there we go. Perfect, looking good. All right, I've got my cut. I extruded it about 10, right? It doesn't really have to go that far because I know this is 5 millimeters. All right, so I could be really precise on this, so I could go -6 if I wanted to get it through. I'm going to cut. Boom, I got a hole. I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did on this front one. I'm going to go grab all of these faces, and I'm going to put a fillet on those. Primarily, again, just so I don't hit my fingers on sharp corners. So let's get them all. There we go. Now I've got one more to grab. There we go. Got them. All right, let's add a fillet. This time I'm going to make it to boom. All right, so now I've got a nice curve there, so I won't hurt my fingers on little sharp corners. Okay. Now I'm going to want to put my name on this guy, so I'm going to use the front of this as the area of my new plane that I'm going to sketch my text on. So I'm going to go to create. I'm going to add some text to this. Okay, so I'm going to, oops, let me go back over here. All right, let's create. I want to create a sketch. All right, I've got my front of where my cell phone's going to rest as my sketch plane. I'm going to create some text. Okay, let me move this down a little bit here. Whoops. So I can see it. All right, I am going to draw my sketch box to where I want my text to be. So, and then I'm going to put what I want on it. This is my great phone holder. I'm going to center this. You can make the text bigger if you want, you know, things like that. I think I'm going to be pretty good on that. I'm going to click OK, and it'll do its thing, and I'm going to finish the sketch. Okay, and I'm going to emboss this text onto my holder. Okay, so I think I want to move it a little bit though. So let's move I'm going to move my cell phone holder here. Okay, it's a body, so I find the body is a little bit easier to move to align things than the sketch. But you can always choose sketch objects to move when you choose to move copy object. Okay. Okay, let's do this again. It didn't stick put. Move bodies. Okay. Yeah. Let's move this. Yeah, that's gonna be fine. Let's click OK. Okay, so now I want to create an emboss. Okay, I'm gonna need to click on my sketch profile. I'm gonna do my face. I'm gonna sketch it onto the front of my face. Okay, and I'm gonna emboss it. Okay, and you can choose where it's going to emboss. So it's embossing it in a funny spot. So I'm going to move it over and I'm going to move it down to exactly kind of where I want it. And you can type in the numbers precisely over here if you want it to. You can even choose to rotate it, and I think that's going to be pretty good on where I want to move it. Okay, you can rotate it if you want it to, if you wanted it at a special angle or something or other. So I think I'm doing pretty good there. All right, so we're looking pretty good. Okay, so we can leave it as is if we wanted to, and this should be strong enough to hold most phones. These phones aren't that heavy. If you're worried about it at all, one of the things that we could do is we could add little support columns here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Is we could go up to the create menu, we can create a sketch, and I'm going to put the support columns on this base right here. Okay, so I'm going to create sketch there. Okay, and I'm going to rotate around, and this time I'm going to create a couple of center diameter circles. All right, so I'm going to create one right here, and I'm going to make it 20, and I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to create another center diameter circle, and I'm going to make it on the other side. Okay, and I'm going to put it at roughly the same spot. Okay, and I'm going to make it also 20. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter. So now I've got these two little support columns here, and what that might do is just support this so that it won't bounce up and down. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude both of these guys. So I'm going to hit E, okay, and make sure that they are both selected, and we are going to extrude them. And notice as they extrude up, okay, I'm gonna do new body for right now. Okay, but notice when they extrude up, they're not gonna quite hit this surface right. So what we have to do over here in our extrude is we're going to go, instead of distance, we're gonna say to object. And so now when I extrude it, I'm gonna say to object. I'm going to choose this bottom of the plane of my place where the plane where my cell phone is going to rest, and notice it automatically adjusts the shapes of my two pillars. So this is actually a really handy thing to do. Because this makes it fit nice, and it changes the geometry automatically for you, so you don't have to go in and cut and slice and make everything fit. The software automatically does it for you. So I'm gonna click OK. So now I can send the cable right through this hole, right underneath of here. It can go under, and it can curl right around, and it can charge my cell phone holder. And so now I have my cell phone holder. Right, which is pretty cool. Okay, so the last thing I am going to do is my cell phone holder. Again, is sometimes sharp edges on things can be a little dicey. So I'm going to click on all of these little corner edges right here, and here, and here, and here. And I'm going to circle around on this side as well and make sure I get this one and this one and this one. I'm not too worried about the ones on the bottom. I'm mainly worried about the ones where I'm going to be reaching and grabbing for my phone quickly, and it's going to cause me to hit and hurt my finger. Okay, so I've got them all highlighted. I'm just going to add a little fillet to them. Let's see how a 1mm one looks. Yeah, I think I might go with that. You can try 2, see how it looks. I might make this one here on the top. I might make that one a 2. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I'll have to undo that one. Maybe I'll leave it as is. Okay. Alright. Cool. Alright, so I think we're done. Okay. So I think what we're now, our next step that we will have to do is, let's go home. Okay. Now we're going to go into Bamboo Studio and we're going to print this. So we're going to, let me save this. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it as my phone holder. Okay. Alright. And now I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Export. Alright. We're going to export it as a STL file. And yeah, let's export it to my desktop just so I can find it. Okay, so this is going to be V1. Perfect. Alright, so now I am going to open my Bamboo Studio. So Bamboo Studio is going to open. Takes a second. So while we're waiting for that to open, notice that over here it saves everything that you have done. So you can always import something else that you have done into an existing file. So if you made something that was cool and you want to import it, you can always bring it in to an existing project, which is kind of cool. Alright, so now my Bamboo is open. So let's go up here to File. These three little lines. I am going to import. And they're going to head to my desktop. And it should be the top one in my date modified. I'm going to open it. So it's going to load it on up. There it is. Okay, so it imported it this way. And let's see if that's the right way to do it in terms of minimizing the number of supports that I need to print. So up here, there's an auto orient. What you want to do is make sure that your print object is selected, so you can just click on it. You're going to auto orient it. So this is how Bamboo thinks is the best way to print it to minimize supports. That probably seems reasonable. Okay, and then over here on your processes, you can pick your printer. You're going to go Bamboo Carbon X1 or probably the Bamboo Lab A1. Let's do the X1. You'll pick your filament type. So you're either going to pick PLA Basic, or you'll scroll down to the generics and you will pick the generic PLA. Okay, as long as you pick the right PLA or PETG, you are gonna be in good shape. So there's my generic PLA. So as long as you pick the PLA or PETG, most of the settings will stay the same and it'll print fine. So PLA Basic. You'll look at your printer that you're going to print in, and it will say what plate it has on it. Most of them will have the cool plate. Every now and then you'll have a textured PEI plate. Those are the gold kind of textured-y ones. So just double check that you're printing on the right plate, or else the printer will give you a little warning saying it's not the right plate. So let's do cool plate. That's what most of them have. And then we'll head over to strength. If you're kind of clumsy, you're afraid you're going to break this thing, and to make it a little stronger, the strength of a 3D print comes in the walls. You can knock that up a little bit. As you make these numbers bigger, the print takes longer. It just does. right? Because you're making something stronger. 15% is small. I tend to go with about 20 to 25. Never print grid. I tend to go with gyroid. It's a nice balance between strength and speed. Okay. Now, you don't have to touch any of the other settings. Everything else is good when you're first doing your first print. Then you're going to go to support, and you're going to enable support. Never pick normal unless you have a really, really good reason. You're going to pick tree. The only reason you would ever pick tree support is if you have something that's really long and horizontal. Tree supports are very good for things like that. But they're hard to take off. And so I almost never print with them unless I really have a very, very good reason. You don't have to touch the other things. Default is fine. Unless I have a really good reason not to, I tend to do on build plate, because then that means it's not putting prints on the supports on the model itself, which means it's only going to be damaging where the end of the support's going to go. And so you won't have a support that starts on the model and ends on the model, so you're only damaging one part of the model. I tend not to do the support critical regions only because I want the print to work. Once you've got all that done, so you've got these settings in place, you'll hit slice plate. And it'll show you the supports. And here's what it means when you go support on build plate only. Notice the support starts on the plate and then it wanders up to where you need the support. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why you wouldn't need this column right here. Right, is that column might not be really necessary, so then the print would be a little faster, right? Right. You also could have a design where this comes down and hits this, right, for the support, right? So you can think about as you design it, right, that you might not want to have this gap at all, right? So there's some advantages. The advantage of having this higher up, right, is it's going to be easier to plug things in and having this closer to your desk, right? Then, so when you're done, you'll go over here. You won't list quick print plate. That will want to send it wirelessly to the printer. You will say export plate sliced file, and just double check here. This is going to take 3 hours and 52 minutes. You'll export the plate. You can send it to your computer. That's what I would recommend. And then you'll save it to an SD card. And our typical naming convention is save it as your name, the name of your printer, and the type of filament that you're using. So last name, printer you're going to use, filament you're going to use, and then you can hit save, and then we can take that and you can stop it in the printer and you can just hit print. And that's how you go from 0 cell phone holder to a 3D printed object.